Baby, if you want to find someone to match your freak, you got to know what your freak even is in the first place. You got to know how you rebel. You got to know how you push the envelope, how you cause a scene, and also what makes you an absolute innovative super genius. Because what makes you brilliant is also what makes you weird. I don't make the rules. We all have a little weirdo inside of us. And today we are talking about the planet Uranus in your chart, not Uranus. Don't be disgusting. It's Uranus. We are going to talk about what it's doing, what it means for you, and how to really work with this freak on a leash. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to AstroloTea with Aliza Kelly. I'm your host and your spiritual friend, Aliza Kelly. And I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to our Wednesday tea party. Every week here at AstroloTea, I bring you 2 hot, fresh new episodes. On Wednesdays, we'll always have a tea party, okay? This is where we unpack different parts of astrology that actually shape your life, like Uranus, the planet of revolution, and how that is in your chart and what it means for you. Yeah, we're talking about that today. And then on Mondays, I have your weekly brew, and this is where I decode the most pivotal astrological events and explore the theme of the week. Like this week's theme is shocking surprises. I have horoscopes, I have tarot pulls, I have deep insights so you always know how to prepare. And also, just to let you know, that to my California community, in a very Uranian way, I have been working on a live production. It is called Aliza's Tea Party, a live astrology show. And honey, you need to know that tea will be spilled, but anything, and I mean anything, can happen. It's a production. Baby, it's a production unlike anything I have ever done before. And it will blow your mind. It's happening at the Elysian Theater in Los Angeles on Thursday, May 14th. Wear your favorite tea outfit, okay? White gloves, a little sundress, a tea party hat. It's gonna be a wild, wild night. I'll drop the ticket link in the show notes, so grab your ticket. I can't wait to see you there. It's going to be amazing. Okay, one more thing. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and for supporting AstroloTea with Aliza Kelly. If you haven't yet, take a minute to rate 5 stars, review, and follow our show. This helps people discover our show, and it also helps us build the community, and it's just, this is an independent podcast, so it's really important. Are you ready for today's tea party? Of course you are. Let's go. Let's get into it right now. Grab a cup. I'm about to pour. Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to another piping hot episode of AstroloTea. I'm your host, your spiritual friend, Aliza Kelly, and this is the tea party every Wednesday, okay? I have to apologize for something. Last week at the tea party, I forgot to put the tea bag in the teacup, so I was serving with like hot water and no tea, and I just want to let you know that that's never going to happen again. That was totally inappropriate. I should be canceled for it. How could you have a tea party without a tea bag in the teacup? It's disgusting behavior. And I've learned my lesson, and you'll never ever see that kind of mishap from me again. In my defense, we did record that episode during Mercury retrograde, so it's a miracle that we have the files at all. It's a miracle there even is an episode in the first place, but I digress. I apologize. It won't happen again. I'll always have your brew, okay? Now today, we are talking about Uranus, which is the planet of revolution and shocking things, and what it's doing in your chart. So we're gonna look at the sign that Uranus is in, and we're also gonna look at the house it occupies, and then we're gonna put all of those pieces together, make them kiss, so you understand what this planet is doing for you, especially considering the fact that Uranus is about to go into Gemini for the first time in 84 years this very week. So yeah, this is gonna be quite the tea party. Speaking of tea parties, I mentioned a moment ago, but if you're in California, come to our live tea party at the Elysian. It's taking place on Thursday, May 14th. The show is called Aliza's Tea Party, a live astrology show. And our tagline is tea will be spilled and anything could happen. And I really mean it. It's going to be very, very, very weird and you are not going to want to miss it. A once in a lifetime experience, divas. Okay, woo! Speaking of weird, today we are talking about the biggest weirdo of them all. The weirdest weirdo who ever weirdoed. It is the one. It is the only Uranus. Come on down, Uranus. Oh my God, a talk show with Uranus, I would die. Uranus is a freak, okay? A freak, a leak. This planet, even, astronomically, is tilted so far on its axis that it literally spins on its side, okay? It's literally breakdancing. It is named after a Greek deity, whereas all of the other planets are named after Roman deities. And its name is literally Uranus, which is the butt of all Uranus jokes. Tank, that means there are no coincidences. Obviously, the planet of being a freak would have such a freaky potty humor sense of humor. Now, Uranus was first discovered with a telescope, which means that it was just, in its inception, in its existence, in our awareness of its existence, a radical breakthrough. Because for thousands of years, our ancient ancestors believed that the solar system ended with Saturn. And then during the Enlightenment, which is all about technology and revolution, and that proclamation, God is dead, very Uranian coded, they found this crazy freak out there beyond Saturn. It was Uranus. What a legend. What an icon. What a weirdo. Okay, speaking of legendary Uranian lore, Uranus's true villain origin story is unbelievable. And a little content warning here, which I feel like all classical mythology needs to have. We have some references to violence and a brief mention of rape in Uranian mythology because, those are the stories of Greek mythology. Okay, so in Greek mythology, Uranus is the primordial sky god. We are talking the OG force of existence, the OG God, the seminal God, okay? Not even a god, the sky itself, not the ruler of the sky, the literal sky. You feel me? So from the very beginning, Uranus's story has to do with the everythingness and the identity, just from the jump, right? So Uranus is married to Gaia, the earth god, but also similarly to Uranus, just Mother Earth herself, just the earth. So the sky and the earth, which you adore, they have great chemistry. They're in love. Gaia becomes pregnant with a litter of little babies, and these children will become the Titans. And it's all is well and good until Gaia starts to deliver. Uranus, a true monster of a baby daddy, the worst baby daddy to exist, completely loses his mind. And right as they're born, he becomes so paranoid and threatened by his children that he shoves them back inside Gaia's womb, causing her tremendous pain and literally preventing the future from happening. Ooh, I actually have goosebumps. That's so chilling. So we right here see psychology in action, right? We see the fact that Uranian archetype refuses to let the future exist. And it's a fear of aging. It's a fear of modernity. It is the instinct to white knuckle what is actually meant to evolve and change. Okay, so horrible. Uranus is the worst. Then what happens is that Gaia, who's suffering, has to come up with a plan. She has to find a way out of this because she's in pain, she's burdened. And then what's also even worse and horrifying is that Uranus is still trying to have sex with her. It's not sex, it's rape. These myths are so disturbing and upsetting. But Gaia figures out a path forward and she conspires with her son, Kronos, Saturn, and hands him a sickle that then becomes the iconic symbol of Saturn. And in one of the most intense origin stories in all of mythology, when Uranus comes to Gaia one night, Saturn pops out of Gaia, uses his sickle, castrates Uranus, separating sky from earth, and tosses his testicles into the ocean, yeets them in. And immediately, as the story goes, Uranus loses his violent sexual urges just like that. And he's obviously banished and he has to go and become relegated into the deep, deep sky And like learns his lesson, it seems instantaneously, becomes this clinical observer who is no longer at the whims of his passions and urges and desires and lust. And he sort of becomes this great grandfather god who has this omniscient ability to see what is going on and to offer advice from his vantage, from a distance. And that's interesting because he actually, through this process, had his own self-actualization journey, had his own transcendence, and was reformed and reborn by this experience, which is the way that we work with Uranus energy now, right? That Uranian energy that we call upon in our charts is not the unhealed Uranus. It's the healed and reformed and remorseful Uranus who recognizes that his actions were wrong and that there were consequences to his behavior. And in this new form, Uranus is the planet of awakening and disruption and liberation. Uranus governs the moments where you split your life, right? And you create a before and an after. Uranus is the ruler of innovation and rebellion and futurism, which is so interesting considering this very unhealed Uranus was super scared of modernity. But even more intimately, Uranus in your birth chart, where Uranus was in the sky when you were born, really shows you the part of self that refuses to stay in something that does not actually make sense for your soul. Uranus intrinsically needs you to evolve because Uranus himself evolved. So Uranus is literally the essence of evolution, of instead of rejecting change, of embracing it. And Uranus as an archetype, as an energy, is fast and it's sudden and it's shocking. It's that moment of castration, you feel me? And that is why Uranus is also associated with lightning, right? There's a flash, there's clarity, everything hits you all at once. Uranus can change your life in an instant, just as Uranus's life changed in an instant. It forces evolution through radical awakenings. In your birth chart, Uranus shows you where you have that brilliance, that genius, and where you're wired differently. It shows where you deviate from expectations, where you challenge the norms, where you carry a kind of electric intelligence that doesn't always follow tradition or what's expected of you or other people's expectations. It's the part of you that refuses to be contained. It does not want to be boxed in. It will not be boxed in. It wants space. It wants freedom. It wants to explore. It wants to redefine. And for a lot of people, Uranian energy can feel almost like intimidating because it needs you to confront a lot of work that you are doing on yourself, and that is also happening on a collective level too. So it needs you to push back. It needs you to not be afraid of rejection. It needs you to figure out what your instincts are and to trust yourself, even if what you are moving towards doesn't make sense to other people. Now, Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Aquarius's traditional ruler was actually Saturn, but after Uranus was discovered, this innovative air sign was assigned to Uranus, which makes sense, like they're a match made in heaven. But what I love about this Aquarius being co-ruled by Saturn and Uranus vibe is that, hello, it's a freaky father-son dynamic come to life. Oh my God, it's so tea. If you didn't know, Saturn ended up doing the same damn thing to his kids. The same thing that Uranus did to him. Saturn then repeated the same fucking cycle, except instead of keeping his wife perpetually pregnant, Saturn ate his children. Saturn consumed his own kids. He became the pregnant one. The whole thing is sick. The whole thing is fucking disgusting. But it is interesting to me that those stories simultaneously exist within the Aquarius narrative. And there's this interesting, psychology there. It also does, on a more tender, earnest level, reveal the importance of healing generational trauma and looking at generational trauma and the work that Aquarius energy can do and help expose that and take action in how we move into the future. But it also makes perfect sense for Uranus to be the ruler of Aquarius, because Aquarius energy is really defined by its futurism and its care and passion for systems and networks and collectives and innovation and reform. Aquarius is always looking at the world and asking, how does this work? Who is this for? How could it be more equitable? How could this be better? There's an intellectual depth and sharpness here, but there's also a deep investment in progress, on a cerebral level. Aquarius cares about humanity more than Aquarius cares about individuals, because Aquarius is the vase, right? Aquarius contains the water. It's not the water itself. So it can almost have this like clinical removed perspective in doing the work that it needs to do to be able to make the world a better place. So there's this natural alliance between the zodiac sign and the archetype of Uranus. Okay, but let me tell you some even more hot, deep cut astrology tea, okay? Astrologers also refer to Uranus as the higher octave of Mercury. And that's tea, because understanding Uranus through Mercury helps us understand how this planet actually wants to operate. So Mercury, the planet of communication, you know it, you love it, unless it's retrograde, in which case you're cursed by it. Mercury is your mind. It's how you understand, and it's how you are understood. It's how you process information. It's how you make sense of your immediate environment. Mercury is linear. It loves to gather data. It loves to organize. It loves to deliver things in a way that is digestible. And then there's Uranus, right? Uranus comes in and electrifies that entire system. Uranus is an electrical grid. It is the internet. It is mass media. It is the tools of dissemination. We are not just thinking about being heard and understood on an interpersonal level. No, this is communication on the largest scale to the people, to humanity, to the world. It's the connection to the world. And of course, all the brilliance and trappings that come from that level of scale. And this is exactly why Uranus is so deeply associated with astrology itself. Uranus is considered the ruler of astrology. Yes, it is. And while you also need Mercury to learn a language, obviously, all of the things about astrology make it a language, the signs and the symbols and the aspects and the interpretation. You need Uranus to see the bigger picture patterns. Yes, you do. You need Uranus to synthesize that information across time, to recognize that your personal experiences are part of a much larger cosmic design. Astrology is that Uranian perspective. It's a zoom out. And if you step back far enough that you can observe life from different vantage points and recognize cycles and timing and meaning, you can see how everything is connected. And that perspective belongs to Uranus, not to mention that Uranus rules the sky and the stars. And that moment you look at your chart or someone else's chart and then you're like, oh, wow, I get it all. This makes sense. That's Uranus, right? Plus, not to mention astrology is weird and Uranus is weird. So it's a match made in heaven, right? Uranus, all weird, astrology, all weird. J'adore. And there's one last thing I want to mention about Uranus and its associations. And it's that Uranus is also traditionally associated with queerness. And I do want to flag that even in sharing this now, it's possible and highly likely that this association may have originated from a more heteronormative perception of queerness. But there are some wonderful queer astrologers like Danny Larkin, my friend in New York, and Jessica Lanyadoo in California, who speak to the Uranian role in queer identity. And I do think that this is worth highlighting because Uranus governs everything that exists outside of convention, anything that challenges binary thinking and rigid identity and conformity itself. So Uranian energy asks that we live in alignment with our true nature, even when that defies what is expected of us, and even when that disrupts systems that are not meant to be inclusive and hold all of the different types of experiences we can, right? So this is why Uranus is often tracked when we talk about queer identity or queer culture, queer liberation, because Uranus, and again, this is like the exalted Uranian archetype, does honor individuality and fluidity and self-definition. So when you have an active Uranus in your chart or in a collective chart, it's really important to consider how your identity, right? Your identity, your sexual identity, your romantic identity, your personal identity is also being shaped or not shaped by the way that you are showing up for society and whether that is truly in line with your truth. That's the T. That's the T. Is that ultimately Uranus wants you to be free and wants you to be yourself. And Uranus is our invitation to figure out what that means for us personally, based on where it is in your chart. Uranus is putting in the work, divas. But now let's keep talking about what this all means for you, okay? Coming up next, we are going to explore Uranus through the signs, and then we are going to explore Uranus through the houses of your birth chart. So stay with me because you're not going to want to miss any of it. We'll be right back after a break. Welcome back, community. We just talked about why Uranus is that way. And now let's talk about what Uranus means for you in your birth chart. Now keep in mind that Uranus has a long-ass orbit of 84 years, which means it takes 84 years for Uranus to come back to the position it occupies in your birth chart. So you only have your Uranian return once every 84 years, once in a lifetime. And that's why Uranus is considered a generational planet, which means people of the same generation all share a Uranus. So Uranus in its sign is more about how you and your peers rebel, right? How you and your peers, people in your generation, innovate. How people in your generation, you and your peers, challenge the status quo. And I think that especially when we look at Uranus in the signs and what we know about the generations, the boomers, Gen Z, whatever, it's really, really illuminating. So we're going to touch on that too, because how we rebel and what we are rebelling against is very much the spirit and the zeitgeist of an entire generation. And Uranus is in your chart, right? It's in your chart in a sign. It's in your chart in a house. We're going to get to that too. And that means that wherever Uranus is not just working in a silo. It is also working with other planets. And all of that whole collection is defining your timing and your personality and your identity. So, Uranus is not just doing its Uranian thing. It's also in conversation to the moon. It's in conversation to your sun. It's in conversation to any other planets that's right next to. So Uranus has a mission. It's doing its Uranian thing, but it's also doing its Uranian thing in context, okay? So let's talk about Uranus through the different zodiac signs. And I actually want to start with Uranus in Taurus because that is the chapter that we are closing this very week. Uranus in Taurus disrupts stability. It questions security and money and resources and the body and the physical world. So if you had any babies from 2018 through now, they will have Uranus in Taurus in their birth chart. And as they get older, we're going to understand how they metabolize and experience that placement. But what we know as a collective in moving through this moment is that there was a big challenge of traditional ideals around wealth, around autonomy, around ownership, around security, around stability that we have been navigating since 2018. So people with Uranus and Taurus in their birth chart are definitely going to be motivated to build new systems of security. I mean, these are going to be kids who were born during the pandemic, which is so T. And people with Uranus and Taurus in their birth chart often are going to find new unconventional ways to create security and new systems that might be very bizarre and unexpected at first, but over time becomes the new status quo. And this is interesting because 84 years ago, we had people who had Uranus and Taurus in their birth chart. And these were people who were born during the Great Depression. This is T. Right? Like you have babies born during COVID, you have babies born during the Great Depression. Very interesting. And those babies 84 years ago also had to figure out new systems of sustainability, right? They were the ones who really started to establish the new systems that we all know now, or the ones that have just been unearthed and upended from these big changes that have happened over the past 7 years. It's such tea. I mean, astrology is amazing. Now, jumping ahead, Uranus in Gemini. This is where we're headed as a collective. Very, very interesting. Uranus was last in Gemini 84 years ago. So perhaps if you have older parents or grandparents, they may have this placement, but we are all about to have a taste of it. And any children born in the next 7 years are going to have this placement too. Uranus in Gemini revolutionizes communication and information and media and thought itself. These are people who think differently, fast, nonlinear, curious, constantly connecting the dots. Innovation is going to happen through language and storytelling and technology and the exchange of ideas. And when you think about it, those people born between 1941 and 1949 were the ones who established modern mass media. Hello, those were the first round of boomers. So that really checks out. Tank. There are no coincidences. We love to see it. Now, Uranus in Cancer people, they were last born between 1948, 1949, and 1956. So this is really this is the boomer generation. These are the post-World War II babies who then ultimately were disrupting the Cancer archetype of tradition. These individuals were determined to break generational patterns. They wanted to stick it to the man, right? They wanted to rebel against the status quo when they came of age and had the ability to do this. They wanted to upend family structures. And I do think about how this generation was so instrumental in women's rights and civil rights and queer rights. Their innovation was about defying traditional standards. And even though some boomers have really strayed and lost the plot, I know, it's a tragedy. There were a lot of them, and there still are a lot of them, who are fighting to make the world a little more weird and a little less normcore. And then next, Uranus in Leo. People born between 1956 and 1962, these people are all about disrupting identity and creativity and self-expression. These are people who are rewriting the script of performance and fame and creativity and visibility. They create for the sake of authenticity. They don't play by other people's rules. I'm thinking of celebrities who have this, like Carrie Fisher and Steve Buscemi and Eddie Murphy and Jim Carrey and literally Jennifer Coolidge. Such a slay. Okay, there's a boldness, a willingness to stand out, to be weird, to take creative risks, to experience recognition for the way that they are weird, right? To be seen and recognized for their weirdness. The rebelling is the performing, and the performing is the rebelling. Yes. And then next, we have Uranus in Virgo. And the last time we had this placement was basically the duration of the 60s, 1962 to 1969. Uranus in Virgo innovates through systems, routines, health, and work. And this is the shift from boomer to Gen X is happening here. And while boomers were all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, it's giving millennial optimism, Gen X is the original Gen Z. These were the original skeptics and contrarians. And people who have Uranus in Virgo really question the system itself. They see the flaws in the processes. Other people see it as normal, and they're like, that's not normal. So this is a very practical rebellion. They want to change the system by rewriting the rules because they realize that the system itself was never designed correctly in the first place. And that brings us to Uranus in Libra, which is the heartbeat of Gen X. From the late 60s to the mid 70s, which is all about disrupting relationships and partnership dynamics and social harmony, these people redefine what connection looks like, okay? People who have this placement are inspired to challenge relationship structures and expectations. There is a deep focus on equality and fairness and autonomy within connection through independence and liberation. So their rebellion shows up in how they relate, and they are really here to create honest partnerships, right? And to call out bullshit when they see it. And now we move into the placements that I think a lot of you listening are going to have. So Uranus in Scorpio is the first one. This is intense. It's deep. It is a placement that disrupts power and intimacy and sex and death and transformation. If you have this placement, no wonder you're here. You are not afraid to go into the shadows. You are drawn to the shadows. You adore the shadows because your innovation comes through by exposing what has been hidden psychologically, emotionally, socially, societally. There is a fearlessness around taboo subjects. You are not afraid to call out things that other people are too squeamish to talk about. You challenge secrecy, challenge control, challenge systems of power. And in your own lives, you also go through profound cycles of transformation, shedding your skin and reinventing yourself. And just like, constantly being this like amorphous energy. The rebellion is emotional and psychological. It really is about when you get out of your own way and you stop being afraid of your own depth, you can call other people out on their surface level bullshit. Uranus and Sagittarius. That's the transition from Gen X to millennials. That takes us from the early 80s into the late 80s. And I think it's perfect because this rebellion is all about breaking belief systems open. These individuals question ideology. They are not interested in blindly following doctrine. There is a hunger for meaning here, but it has to be real. It has to be lived. It has to be something that, they can trust the source on. Very, very smart, right? Uranus and Sagittarius, a very smart, thinking, brilliant mind, critical awareness, really, really strong here. There is innovation that comes through teaching and storytelling, expanding perspectives. They challenge dogma. They challenge assumptions about culture and spirituality and knowledge. So the rebellion for Uranus and Sagittarius people is very philosophical. And this is a Uranus that asks, what do you actually believe when you think for yourself? This is the essence of people who are militant about thinking for themselves. And then we have Uranus in Capricorn, my fellow Uranus in Capricorns. This was from 1988 to 1995, so it's really like core millennial. People with this placement are interested in disrupting what it means to create a legacy. They're interested in disrupting the systems of hierarchy. They're interested in disrupting what work even means, how we work, how we make money, why we work, where we work. It's giving we work. It's giving remote work, right? It's like, yeah, we'll do it, but we're going to do it on our terms, okay? These people question why things are the way they are, and then they feel very confident in knowing that they have a better way forward. And they're not afraid to challenge outdated models of success and leadership and responsibility. There's obviously, it's Capricorn, so there's a seriousness to this placement, but there's also a willingness to say, you know what, if it's not working, forget it. We don't need it. And, ultimately the goal is building frameworks for the future. And if they need to break down the old system, then that's okay. They'll break it down. The rebellion is very strategic. And the question for all of us with this placement is, what are we building and why are we building it? And what does this process of building say about the future? And then up next, we have our Uranus in Aquarius friends, which brings us from 1996 to 2003. So this is the end of the millennials, our first wave of Gen Z friends. And no wonder Gen Z hates the rules. This is so like, oh, that's why you are the way you are. It's Uranus in Aquarius. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. This is amplified Uranian energy. So these individuals are natural disruptors. They're natural visionaries and innovators. They think collectively. They think in systems. They understand networks. They understand technology. They define technology. Hello. Oh my God. The world is run by Uranus in Aquarius people. There is a strong drive towards progress, towards equality, towards creating things that are for the people, that are for mass dissemination. Obviously, very ahead of their time. But they are providing the rule books, right? They're writing the rule books for us right now because that inherent desire to rebel and to do it through technology and modernity is like, it's like the deepest Uranian wounds for our Uranian mythology that we could get. So going even deeper into Gen Z and into, oh my God, Gen Alpha, these are people born from 2003 to 2011. They have Uranus in Pisces in their charts. And these people don't even know what boundaries are, baby. They don't. They were raised on their devices and everything coexists. Spirituality, creativity, imagination, fame, emotional experience, psychology, sexual experiences. What's the difference? There is no distinction. These Uranus and Pisces people innovate through art and intuition and also like feeling their way through reality. Their amazing instinct to rebel helps them tap into unseen realms, which is beautiful in tea, but there's no line between logic and feeling. There's no distinction between fact and fantasy, right? Material and mystical. They're breaking the rules because they've never even had rules in the first place. T. They didn't even know that rules existed. Uranus and Pisces people are sort of navigating what it means to rebel against systems that you never really even understood in the first place, and all the while to make sure that you are not rebelling against yourself. And then finally, we have Uranus in Aries, raw initiation energy. People born from 2011 to 2018 have this placement. So these are the kiddos. And, maybe some very precocious listeners too have this. Why not? You can be here. You're welcome. We love you. Now, these kids, Gen Alpha, right? They do not play. They are not afraid to shake up systems by fighting. In fact, these individuals are here to start something, okay? They're here to step two. They're leaders, they're trailblazers, they move fast, they take risks, they tell you to fuck off. They challenge by doing. There is a fierce independence to Uranus and Aries, a refusal to wait for permission. Their rebellion is immediate. If you are parenting a Uranus and Aries kid, I feel for you. You feel it for sure. But ultimately, what we can learn from them is trusting yourself enough to know that you can be a leader and your leadership is in and of itself rebellious. So as you go through these and then send these, of course, to the people in your life who have them, I want you to start thinking about your own chart and recognizing that you have Uranus in a sign, yes, but you also have, more importantly, that energy showing up in your life. Astrology is all theoretical until it is applied. And I want you to think about how Uranus in your sign has already come through your life experiences. Where are you trying to break the mold? Where are you challenging the norm? Where are you stepping into things that feel uncomfortable? Where are you a freak? What makes you a fucking weirdo? I love it. I want to know. Next up, we are going to make Uranus incredibly personal. Even though Uranus hates to be personal, it hates to be intimate, we're going to do it. We're going to drag Uranus into some intimate conversations because we're going to look at the house that Uranus occupies in your birth chart to reveal exactly what Uranus means in your life, where you are naturally inclined to rebel, break the mold, and let your freak flag fly. Yes. Okay, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a quick break. Hello, community. We have been talking about Uranus, what it does, how it shows up in different signs, but now let's make it the most personal that this planet can be. And it's T because Uranus is so clinical, it never wants to be personal, but when you look to see which house Uranus is occupying in your chart, you can see exactly how those Uranian qualities play out in your life, okay? And if you're new to astrology, the houses are the different pie slices, the different areas of life that get activated by planets, but also that just exist as part of your own cycle and journey, right? The different areas where you and your personality and your lessons show up. Every person has 12 houses in their birth chart, and their houses are architected by the exact date and time and location of your birth. So you can use a birth chart calculator. My recommendation is always time passages to see that full, beautiful 360 birth chart with the 12 houses. We'll do a whole tea party on the houses, obviously. But for now, just notice which house Uranus falls in, okay? And remember, we talked about this last week. The formula for putting the pieces together is the planets are the what. So Uranus is how you rebel. The zodiac sign is the how. And we just talked about, the different energy of the different zodiac sign. And then the houses are where in your life you're going to see it play out. Okay, let's do it. If Uranus is in your first house, this is the essence of being a rebel. You truly are. You rebel just by simply existing. Your existence is an act of rebellion. You are not here to give people what they expect you to give them. Period. You evolve visibly. People meet you one way, and then 6 months later, you are like, I'm so over that. That's not me anymore. You've shifted, you've changed your look, you've changed your energy, you've changed your entire life because there is a restlessness to that urge to rebel. You don't want to lock into a singular identity. You want to experiment with who you are. You want to try things on. You want to surprise people. You want to surprise yourself. And it also means you want to freak people out. Okay, that's a big part of it. You want to make people be like, wait, what? That was not who I thought it was. That's okay. That's your job. That's what you're meant to do. All you need to focus on is making sure that through these changes and through these acts of rebellion, that you are staying loyal to yourself and that you're not losing yourself in the process of freaking everyone else out. And that's it. Otherwise, it's everyone else's problem if they can't handle, a different hair color every 2 weeks. If Uranus is in your second house, your relationship to money and value and security does not follow a traditional path. Your income can fluctuate, your priorities can shift. You might make money in very unconventional ways, or you may reject systems that feel too rigid. Stability for you is something that you have to define on your own terms. And yeah, that can be scary, especially if you have other planets in your chart that don't like that. And ultimately, Uranus in the second house is a practice of self-trust. It demands that you believe in yourself enough to know that you can create security, even if that security doesn't look like the way that you were taught to experience it. So ask yourself right now, what do you actually value? And then ask yourself, what were you told you had to value? And then find how you are just innately rebelling against those expectations. And that is how that innovative Uranian energy is showing up in your life. If Uranus is in your third house, your mind is fast and furious. Vin Diesel of the mind, baby. You move differently. You communicate differently. You may have grown up feeling like you were way ahead of your environment or like your perspective did not at all match your peers. People who have strong fish out of water experiences often have Uranus in their third house. But that's okay because there is a real brilliance and innovative spirit to how you process information and also how you expose people to storylines and narratives that they may have not been able to access or know. You make connections with other people and then also in the world that other people don't see. And you say things that people are too afraid to say. And you are just innately disruptive. You're disruptive in the way that you socialize, in the way that you exist, in the way you question things, in the way you introduce new ideas. If you ever find yourself feeling stifled or limited, my recommendation, my advice to you is to think am I in an environment that is making me feel uninspired? And if that is the case, honey, Uranus in the third house needs to get the hell out of there. If you have Uranus in the fourth house, your home, your family, your emotional foundation has been anything but traditional. There is just innately this sense that even this system of security has to be disrupted, probably because you had instability early on, or the sense that you needed to figure out security on your own terms. You may have broken away from family patterns. You may have chosen a life path that looks completely different than where you came from. And all of that is how you are meant to rebel. You are here to rewrite the script around belonging. You are here to create a new version of home that is actually authentic to your soul. So when you think about the way that you rebel, think about, what does a foundation mean for you now as an adult? What does that look like on your own terms? And how is that in and of itself an act of rebellion? If you have Uranus in the 5th house, which is the house of creativity and pleasure and romance and self-expression, these are the areas of life where you refuse to conform, okay? You are not here to create what is expected of you. You are here to create the art and the experiences that are true. Your art, your sexuality, your dating life, the way that you present yourself to the world, the way that you showcase yourself, it's all unconventional intentionally. You may not realize that it's intentional because it's so innate to you, but Uranus in this area says you have to do things differently. You have to take risks other people wouldn't take. You have to have experiences that other people would feel like are too unpredictable or chaotic or, unstable or whatever. But that is where your aliveness lives. So if you ever find that you feel censored or limited creatively, take risks. Stop playing it safe. Remember that art making is an act of rebellion, and it is your act of rebellion. If you have Uranus in the 6th house, your relationship to work and routines and health and wellness is constantly evolving. You are not meant for a rigid schedule. You are not meant for repetitive systems that repeat day after day after day. You need flexibility. You need space to adjust, to pivot, to experiment with how you structure your day-to-day life. And this could look like unconventional jobs. This could look like different types of morning or evening routines. This could look like a totally different way of thinking about productivity and time management. And also keep in mind that your body also might communicate to you in very unexpected ways. So you are going to have to learn how to listen differently to your body than other people listen to their body. You feel me? You have to create your own systems because your systems with Uranus in your 6th house are unconventional. They're different. They're where you are a weirdo. Also, last thing I want to say here is that the 6th house is also pets. So people who have Uranus in the 6th house might have very funny pets. Very funny looking pets or very odd and unusual pets. We're talking like Pepito's menagerie, or perhaps even, dare I say, a little bit of Tiger King vibes. If you have Uranus in the 7th house, your relationships are a catalyst for awakening. So naturally, you attract people who challenge you, who disrupt your patterns, who push you to grow. Partnerships will never follow traditional timelines or expectations. And that's not just, romantic partnerships. That's also the partnerships that you have in your life, contracts, businesses. There might be really unexpected beginnings, really unexpected endings, dynamics that leave people being like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. That threw me off. You also probably are attracted to very unconventional people. You want to be with the weirdos. You want to be with people that would make a grandmother clutch their pearls. But that is exactly what you need to be doing, honey, because every single relationship is here to show you something about yourself. Nary something about how you are not meant to live a small life of conformity. So you need to always make sure that you're asking yourself, are you choosing relationships that are putting you on the path of your soul's rebellion? And if you are, even if other people don't understand them, that's exactly what you need to be moving towards. Uranus in the 8th house is deep and transformative, and it's intense. Your life changes through crisis, through intimacy, through trauma, through confronting the parts of yourself that other people would never even dare look at, okay? There are going to be sudden shifts around resources and power dynamics and emotional entanglements and the past. And honey, you are not afraid of it, right? It might be hard, but truly you can handle it because you are constantly being asked to find the rebelling against the circumstances in your life that you didn't choose, right? And in the act of letting go the terms and the conditions and the trappings that you inherited that you didn't necessarily sign up for or even want in the first place, that is how you become the most evolved and transformed and rebellious version of yourself. Your rebelling actually happens through your ability to move forward, to not linger in the sadness and in the past and in the memories and the experiences that hold you back. By letting things go and by really tapping into that phoenix rising from the ashes energy, new things can emerge. And that gives futurism and modernity and evolution. So never be afraid to release, okay? If you have Uranus in the 8th, like your revolution is saying, I actually don't choose this and I release it. If you have Uranus in the 9th house, your beliefs are not meant to be fixed, okay? You are here to question and explore and expand your perspective through experience. I need you traveling. I need you writing. I need you questioning spirituality itself, because these are the areas where you are going to break free from tradition. You don't need to accept anything. You don't need to accept what I'm saying. You just need to seek your own understanding of life. If you have Uranus in the 9th, there is a hunger for meaning, and it has to be authentic. It has to be true. It has to be pure. It has to be lived. So when you think about the way that you grew up and the doctrine or the dogma or the belief system that you were fed, and the fact that you spit it out, let this be the sort of model for how you find revolution in all aspects of your life. In other words, just because somebody says you have to, doesn't mean you have to. If you have Uranus in the 10th house, your public life, your career, your reputation, it's all subject to change, okay? You are not here for a linear path. You are definitely someone who has to change careers, redefine success, challenge authority, or build something entirely new that has never existed before. People are going to see you as this sort of like wild card, this unpredictable force and agent. What they're actually seeing is evolution in real time. They're actually seeing rebelling through you, right? You become the model of rebellion. You are here to disrupt the idea of what success and achievement look like. So what does it mean for you to do that actively in your life? And if you're not doing it, think of how you can tap into that power of resistance, rebelling, doing things your own way, not playing by the rules, and really let that Uranus in the 10th house become an embodiment of your ambitions. If you have Uranus in the 11th house, community, friendship, networks, this is where you innovate, my friend. You attract unconventional people. You build connections that don't fit the traditional molds. There is a strong awareness of the collective experience, of how groups function, of how systems can be improved. And you are here to connect people. You're here to create communities. You are here to be part of something bigger in an authentic way, right? Uranus in the 11th house is the essence of a protest. It's the essence of standing up for yourself, standing up to the bullies, and really advocating for social change and disruption, and knowing that disruption innately is not a bad thing. Disruption can be chaotic, but it's not the chaos that you're seeking, it's the change. So if you have to move past the chaos to get to the change, you're up for the challenge, no problem. And then finally, if you have Uranus in the 12th house, this is the essence of a psychic, spiritual, emotional awakening. This is the part of self that is constantly evolving as it relates to your mental health, as it relates to your own ancestry, generational trauma, generational narratives, your relationship to your psyche. You are probably someone who has sudden insights and big downloads, moments of clarity that just come from out of nowhere. There's a deep connection to the unconscious, to the divine, to the unseen. But there is also a need to release old patterns and old fears and old subconscious conditioning that doesn't make sense in your life. So your evolution with Uranus in the 12th house happens on a spiritual level, and it happens from within. And I want to mention that if you have Uranus in the 12th house, like you are meant to be someone who changes your mind and also changes other people's minds. So don't be afraid to push the status quo by talking about healing and wellness and mental health, even if you're doing it in ways that other people don't understand in the moment. You are meant to be a thought leader within those spaces. Hot damn, delicious tea. As you sit with all of this, I want you to make sure it makes sense for you. Think about it, honey. Play with it. Layer in your house and the sign that it's in. Layer in your generation. Layer in the themes you are experiencing, your peers are experiencing. Uranus is fascinating because it is removed, but also because, of course, it's in your chart, so it needs to be embodied. And if there is one thing we know about change, if there's one thing we know about rebelling, if there's one thing we know about the revolution, we know that it's best when it comes from the bottom up rather than the top down. So especially in these unprecedented times, make sure you keep your Uranian energy close and you let that freak flag fly. What do you think about today's episode? What resonated? What did you learn? What breakthroughs did you have? Let me know in your reviews, 5-star, in the comments. And of course, be sure to tell your friends about AstroloTea. It makes such a difference and it really helps build our community. And we want everyone to come to our tea parties. I'll be back on Monday with your weekly brew, OBS including your horoscope, and then join me next Wednesday for another tea party. Make sure you tune in every Monday and every Wednesday for all piping hot new episodes of AstroloTea on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. I don't judge.